Japan, a land of ancient empires, enigmatic warriors, and centuries of tradition. For over 600 years, it was the shoguns who held ultimate power. Military dictators, they shaped Japan through an era of isolation and rigid order. Yet even the mighty shoguns couldn't rule forever. So what happened? Did their iron grip simply weaken? Did foreign powers force their downfall? Let's dive into the twilight of the shoguns and unravel the forces that finally shattered their rule. The Tokugawa shogunate, the last of the great shogunates, began in the early 1600s. This was a time of bloody civil wars, and after decades of chaos, the Tokugawa brought stability under the power of the sword. Yet this stability would carry the seeds of its own destruction. The samurai weren't just soldiers. They were an entire social class, the living embodiment of Bushido, a code that prized honor, loyalty, and self-sacrifice. For centuries, the shoguns, themselves samurai of the highest order, had ruled Japan with both political and military might. The fall of the Tokugawa shogunate meant the end of an era, casting the warrior spirit of Japan into doubt. Imagine a society where a man's reputation was measured not by wealth, but by the sharpness of his sword, where the slightest insult could demand a duel to the death, and seppuku, ritual suicide, was a way to redeem honor. Suddenly, this world was forced to confront the cold efficiency of Western technology. Steamships pierced Japan's isolation. Factories churned out goods cheaper than any craftsman could hope to match. Foreign powers armed with rifles and cannons no longer feared the samurai's blade. The fall of the shogunate wasn't just the end of a political dynasty. It was a clash of civilizations, a moment where tradition and modernity collided violently. Could the centuries-old ideals of the samurai endure? Could a nation so steeped in the past find its place in a future driven by industry and firepower? And beyond Japan, the downfall of the shogunate shifted the delicate balance of power in East Asia. The decline of the old order tempted the ambitions of rising empires, setting the stage for conflicts that would reshape the 20th century. Now let's peel back the layers and examine why the mighty Tokugawa shogunate collapsed. It wasn't a swift beheading, but rather a slow bleed, a perfect storm of internal decay and external pressure. For centuries, the Tokugawa had maintained control with a delicate balance: strict social hierarchies, economic restrictions, and a policy of self-imposed isolation. Yet this very system intended for stability became its undoing. The samurai class, the military elite, found themselves in a gilded cage. Their status was unassailable, yet their economic prospects were bleak. Inflation devoured their stipends, while their skills as warriors rusted in a time of forced peace. Meanwhile, a new power was rising: the merchants. Supposedly beneath the samurai, they amassed obscene fortunes through trade and finance. This upended the social order, creating resentment within the very class meant to uphold the shogunate's rule. At the foundation of this pyramid were the peasants, the vast majority of Japan's population. Drought, famine, and crushing taxes painted a grim picture. Uprisings flickered across the land, a constant reminder of the seething discontent. Then came the black ships. In 1853, the arrival of American Commodore Matthew Perry and his intimidating fleet became a catalyst. His demands to open Japan for trade were backed by cannons and the echoes of the Opium Wars in China. Suddenly, Japan's vulnerability was undeniable. Their swords were no match for steamships and rifles. The policy of isolation, so long a source of pride, became a dangerous liability. The shogunate was trapped in the crossfire between a decaying past and an uncertain future. Forced to choose between appeasing foreign powers and preserving the old order, their choices only fueled dissent. Samurai, once loyal enforcers, were torn. They saw their nation slipping behind and felt betrayed by a leader unable to protect their way of life. Many felt modernization was the only way to expel the foreigners and restore Japan's strength, even if it meant breaking centuries of tradition. With every treaty signed with the West, with every concession made, the shogunate's authority was chipped away. Anti-shogun factions united disgruntled samurai, ambitious nobles, and even the emperor himself, who for centuries had been little more than a figurehead. Civil unrest escalated into outright rebellion, culminating in the Boshin War and the Meiji Restoration in 1868, where the emperor regained power and a new, ruthlessly modernized Japan was born. The fall of the shoguns wasn't just about a change in who sat on the throne. It was a revolution that transformed Japan from a world frozen in time into a leading power. The samurai would vanish, their swords replaced by modern armies. Industries would surge, transforming the landscape. Japan was forever altered, and the question lingers, was their sacrifice necessary? Could another path have been forged? Could Japan have modernized without abandoning its core identity? These questions continue to resonate even today, as nations struggle to balance tradition with progress, past with future. The story of the shogunate's downfall is a reminder that history is more than dusty dates and old names. It's about choices, consequences, and echoes rippling through time. If you found this chapter of history intriguing, hit the subscribe button. Explore other stories of power and change right here on the channel. And let me know in the comments, what other moments in history would you like to see examined? Until next time, keep searching for the answers hidden in the echoes of the past.